discussion. So welcome. Today is it's our monthly call for SIP. And I have a few just very quick admin stuff, and then I want to go into a bit of a discussion. So what do we have here? Yeah, I wanted to provide some updates from us. So the point number 3, we launched a SIP exclusive event. This is like for people who are certified and they are members, I think active members. I don't know how we track that, but this is something that and then we have like a quarterly, almost quarterly event, which is 90 minutes. It's more like a workshop. So as soon as we have a date for the next one, I'll let you know. You should have received that, but it's a bit of a different touch. It's not like these calls, which is more like a community call. The other one is something around thought leadership and maybe publishing something. So this is something that you might be interested, but we'll let you know next time. We just did a pilot in March and it went very well. We keep growing. I think there is some interest from corporates, so this is really good. The nice thing is that there's no other course or certification at the level of the one on Robin Me. You could go to an MBA, you can go to Harvard, of course, but something reasonable with content and so on. It's one of the few ones, so we just want to leverage that as much as possible. Anita, you have a question.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just wanted to know, was the SIP event taking place on March 19th? Because I haven't got any invite.
No.
I know. No. Okay. You haven't yet. I'm certified SIP. And well, last time I asked Robin if it's because 19th also was February. He said no, 19th March. And then I didn't want to bother him. But
okay,
no, I haven't.
Let me check into that, Anita. Normally you should have, yeah, there's an email sent. I'll check that, Anita, to see what happened.
That's very kind.
And if you're all the invited, yes, I need to understand what are the criteria, but if you're SIP and you're a member, then you should have received it.
Yes.
So I don't understand.
I qualify for both, yes. Thanks a lot.
Sure. So that's something where we want to bring some speakers and make it more interactive. Then this is more like a community update and discussion. So, and as we're a small group, so I was thinking, this is that topic that is in my mind all the time is, okay, it's clear that the world is changing faster and faster. We need to adapt our strategies, but when do we know that we need to really change the strategy, pivot the strategy, say that one is old, that one is no longer valid, we move to the new one? I don't know if you have experience or you've seen that, or you have some approaches on how can we see that? How can we just not do it like an ad hoc, but be more sensing some signals around to then work towards an change strategy, a different approach? I just don't know if there's a way that we can do it a bit more systematic than just ad hoc or following trends or try and test and then we'll see. So I thought it was a topic very, very, very applicable, and it's just going to become more and more important. And maybe we need to work with AI, I don't know. I think there's a lot of options. So that's the topic I wanted to discuss. And I want everybody to share a bit if you have some views, if you have some questions. So it's really an open discussion. I don't have the solution. I have some ideas, but let me just stop sharing and we have that discussion here. Raise your hand and I pass it on. I'll ask you anyway what you see as the key relevance. So Claudette, what's your take on this one?
I think it has to do with building your action plan into your original strategy and knowing what your KPI and your PQIs are going to be, and then having a system making sure that you have a system so that that information is retrieved easily and that it becomes a culture to review that information constantly. And different levels that, that need that information. So maybe like very frontline people may need it more often in like team meetings. And then as you go farther and farther up, less often with the manager responsible having their hand on the pulse of all of it. And I mean this sincerely. I'm not even talking textbook. It's been my aha moment for the last 24 months because we would, throw outcomes out there, sometimes even get them from other places, just, okay, that sounds like a good outcome, or indicator rather, but not really understand what it means in terms of how it will impact or change our work. And I found that if you can articulate a really good problem statement, like get everybody from governance right down to frontline person agree on, in our business, nonprofit, it would be the problem you're trying to address.
Yeah.
The market, it would be the problem you're trying to solve. If you can get that right, everything else, if you lead people through, what the inputs, what the outputs, what the outcomes are, and the indicators, it comes so naturally. We must do that. And that is work. And normally people don't want to do it. And then we don't manage the data collection and the review process so that when we can go back and look at the plan and make adjustments. But when you do that, it's magic. Everything just flows, so easily. But we also, as planners, assume that people know the power of this. They even understand what an output or outcome or indicator is. Most times they don't. And so it's our job to really help people along in this process so it becomes a part of the culture of that business.
Nice. Can you remind us where you work for the people who are joining?
Yeah, so I wear a couple of hats. I am still working as a project and support manager. I used to be an executive director, retired after 22 years, but I still work there for a nonprofit advocacy group in Bermuda. Bermuda is very small, 60,000 people, and our organization has 62,000 members. But our population aging, the average Bermudian is over 50. So I do project management with them. I am a contractor for the Nonprofit Alliance of Bermuda, which is a organization that advocates on behalf of nonprofits, but also deals with building, strategic planning, training on board governance, etc. And then I work in the private sector for a company called ICS, Independent Consulting Services. And we do, well, actually, as I mentioned the other day, we got our first multi-billion-dollar client. So we work in a private sector market. Right now, we're supporting international business. Bermuda is a financial jurisdiction. And so we are helping individuals with their business solutions. And I'm on the team to help with their philanthropic strategies. So that's what I do.
Nice, very interesting. Thank you, Claudette. Yeah. And I like you're moving from project manager to more strategic level. That is what we wanted with this. Super great. Thank you. Anita, please.
Yes, well, Claudette already has said most of it. So I just wanted to add something. Is like having regular quality gates or the 90-day cycles where you constantly review what has happened in the past. Is it still valid? Can we still go forward? Does it align with other goals and the vision? And the next thing is really engage everyone. So Claudette has said this has to be incorporated into the culture. That means people are responsible and accountable for the strategic direction.
Nice. Can you also briefly explain where you've been working and for Bosa and Cetuña?
No, well, the last time I was doing it's a year-long project of restructuring the entire cross-border transport of goods between Switzerland and Austria, so non-EU country and EU country, and we are planning, or we have done, well, it is about the digitalization about this traffic. and customs. And the point is, it's a year-long project. It's included construction, and I was responsible for the procurement of all the hardware components. That means barriers, cameras, traffic lights, and so on. And it's still going on, but just my engagement has ended because the first like calls for companies still take time because they have to sort out the construction, which is in sensitive area, ecological sensitive area, and a lot of politics governments involved. But the first part of digitalization already is in a pilot or working, and now it needs further digitalization.
Very interesting. Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Anita. Greg, what's been on your mind? Maybe first introduce yourself. So.
Me.
Yeah.
I'm just making sure it's me.
Yeah,
I'm Greeny. Been doing the strategic planning at corporate and business unit level for probably half my career, and half my career implementing strategy in one form or another, from large multi-country sort of implementations to large corporates, multi-sectoral M&As, mergers and acquisitions, etc. So that's my background. In terms of the question regarding dynamic strategy or the agility of strategy, sorry, I was a bit distracted with the work issue, but if I understand it, correctly, in terms of going forward, yes, sure. In terms of execution of strategy, one can become very dynamic, but it depends on the size of the organization. But Antonio, you really change your strategic choices mid-course, go from lowest cost provider to differentiation in days or weeks, and it's a big change, both culturally and structurally, etc. But obviously, within downstream from there, strategy as a process, you can implement ways in which you can become far more agile, such as in your product development and the like. So I'm a big proponent of a scaled agile framework and a lean portfolio management. And as such, it's built into it at an organizational ecosystemic level to have that agility, but it still backs into a strategic planning process and the like. So that part upstream of there, in terms of the strategic choices, your organizational design, your target operating model, etc., they have a lag in terms of their change, as we know. So so that's my opinion, Antonio. Yeah. It depends on size and scale and stuff. I mean, so I've been involved in starting sort of multi-billion dollar new business units, strategic business units, and they take time, from developing, putting forward your financial statements for the end as a measure of outcome or the validity or the business case, to working all the way backwards into how it integrates in the organizations. They're not small things. But yeah, I mean, if you've got an established organization or business unit and you're just changing a product, that can be done overnight. But major strategic changes, tough to do. And yeah. So anyway, I don't want to go too far down that hole, but that's my opinion. Yeah.
No, thank you. Yeah, great point. Scale agile at scale, or scale agile, all this, I think it's good approach. I was with Orange Business Telecom in France, and they told me, yeah, we've implemented, but however, we still have challenges with the cultural change, with letting go, with moving from hierarchies to it's. I think it's a nice concept, but it's not easy to put in place. Yeah.
Sort of last word on that, to support what you're saying. So often I deal with organizations that say they agile because they have agile project management mechanisms in place, Scrum or whatever it might be. But their management hasn't changed. They still command and control. They're still deterministic in their views. They do budgeting in a standard form. So aspects like participative budgeting and servant leadership are often an anathema for them, and yet they claim to be agile in their approach. So, culture eats strategy for breakfast. This is a case in point. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, carry on.
Thank you. Anita, you want to comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something regarding Safety Scale HR framework. Well, originally it's intended as a dual operating system. So that means, we have the discussion of hybrid project management. So this is kind of same. So you have an alternative structure where you can run projects very fast. You have the release trains, you have everything orchestrated. But I think the biggest weakness is the culture, because you have in a certain kind, also in hybrid project manager, in certain parts you have an HR culture, but not in the overall company. But in today's times where you need to transform and you need to change and you need to reinvent yourself, this is a kind of excuse of just sitting back and not doing anything about the culture. But the culture is essential, and so I agree with Greg. And this is a fallacy many companies are having. And changing the culture is a hot topic. And yes, and you need to want to do it. But most people fail with wanting to do it because the power plays and all the things we have discussed.
Yeah. Great
point.
point.
1000%.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Bosa, you want to comment a little bit on this topic? If you have some views that you're seeing there in your company or around you?
Yes, I think they have mentioned the right things. But I think to add, I would say also the processes, just to ensure that we have the right processes to help us to be able to adapt quickly should there be need to adapt, looking at the environment that we are operating in. For example, I think Claudette mentioned that we need to every 90 days where she is, they constantly check the environment, they collect the data in terms of what is happening. It needs to be part of the process so that when we go to do, for example, an annual review, we have all that data in place that we are working with, and it's the current data. So if we need to change some of our priorities, if we need to change some of the key performance indicators so that we ensure that at the end of the period we do achieve our objectives, we do so well or we do so in timely manner. And also they mentioned culture. I think culture is very, very important. And I think we should also, as much as we adopt project management approach to ways of doing things, we should also not forget that it goes hand in hand with change management. For example, sometimes people are resisting. We have a very difficult culture because most people don't necessarily have the right information. They feel like, oh, when you want to introduce this, you just drop it on us as a bomb. Why should we be moving with you at this pace? Give us the details. We need to know where we are. So I think making sure that everybody is informed, making sure that we follow the ADCA model in terms of letting people know, knowing, capacitating them, giving them that knowledge, those capabilities, so that when we do the shift, they are well informed. They know why we're doing this, and they know how they fit in the new structure or the new ways of doing things. Then I think when everything comes together, it would be easy for us to change some things in our strategy, our measures or key performing indicators, and it will be easy for our people to also follow along as we do these changes. But I think everybody raised very good points. Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting. Yes, that resistant AdCar is a good model. It's very straightforward, but it's just simple but useful, right? It's really, really good. I was with L'Oreal last yesterday, and they're using it company-wide, so it's a good model. Thank you. Setunya, what is your take here?
Yes, I think most of the points have been covered. Yes, and I think we have to stay a put of what we want to achieve with our strategy. And like we do this side, we can't ignore the changes that are happening in between. So that to catch up to that, we do our strategy reviews and we do some research in between and try to involve the whole organization really to give us ideas to take them along if there are any changes. And we mostly try to change how we want to achieve our overall strategy, not much on what we want to achieve. So we try to change the how part. That's my take. And yes, my colleague have also touched on the culture aspect. So it's also important that as we do our strategy and implement some of the new things in our organization, we take the organization along. Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting. While you were all talking, I think great points. My thinking was, okay, yes, we will pivot maybe the strategy going from, like you were saying, Greg, low cost to differentiation, or going into one market, or changing the products or the service, but how does this cascade? No, is this going to be possible to do with the current employees and middle management? Do we need new skills? How I can see that the switch on the top, but until it reaches the bottom, plus the resistance in practice, I just don't know it. I don't think it will happen very quickly. So I don't know if there's other ideas how we could make these organizations more agile. I don't know if we need to have 2 or 3 strategies going in parallel, and maybe one is the focus, and then we're able to shift to the other one very quickly, even before 90 days. I just don't know. I'm brainstorming here based on your comments.
Well, I think Greg made a good point about scale. So because we're small, I have no idea what like a really large organization, and I could only imagine that it would be difficult, you know, to move quickly, right? The way that bureaucracies go, or hierarchies go. And we have had experiences where companies are incorporated under law with their philanthropic objectives. You cannot change this. Just, you know, change your articles of incorporation. They're legal documents.
Yeah.
So what we find is that we say, okay, something crazy. Like sometimes new management, let's say an organization has been in existence for 20 years. The new person hasn't even looked at the articles of incorporation. And in the making this articles of incorporation, it says collect to save the environment. But you're over here having a females, you know, violence protection center. What? How in the world are you going to align your strategy to that when it's so different from, you know, where you are today? And the answer is you can't. You can't because it's going to right away. It's going to cost money. You've got to get lawyers. You've got to get people to agree that you've got to change. The government has to agree because there's a permit that's involved that allows it. That's most boards do not want to do that. They do not deal with the government and change. They want to continue operating. So as the strategist now, you have to align, try to the best you can align where they want to be with what's actually written in the legal document. So that I can appreciate. I do believe cascading is important, and I do believe that training is necessary for all levels of staff to understand how to action items. And I looked at the strategic, the SIP, you know, core circle, which is what attracted me to the Institute in the beginning. And it's that phase that's called embedding. And we got to spend some time there. I think it's called that because the culture changes in there too, right? We got some time in embedding certain practices. And I think in our exam, these ladies will remember because they just did it.
Mm-hmm.
It talks about there's key leaders. You know, there are key people that if you change them, am I right, Antonio? Like the supervisors and so, you're more likely, and if they get it and they're interested in it and they're passing it on, you're more likely to have a change. So yes, that comes with it. And leadership. Also, we spent lots of meetings prior talking about leadership. If the leader isn't there to, even if they don't understand, but they're willing to take the risk to get there, to make the changes, we're better off than having resistant leadership. Sometimes if the leadership is too resistant, you just walk away because they're not ready, or you allow them to fail or do whatever until they're ready to, make that change. That's my thought.
Thank you. Very nice. I like how we are evolving here. I like it. The constraints. Greg, you're next.
So yeah, I think just building on everyone in terms of strategy as process to facilitate agility or the dynamic nature of strategy. But the other aspect is regarding the structure of the organization and how it interacts with its shareholders. So in terms of alignment, the shareholders, the board of executives, the management structure, and the employees need to be aligned. And the problem lies in keeping that alignment with massive changes that happen in this VUCA type environment. And like with one of the companies that I dealt with that I thought had really got their strategic thinking right at the executive and level was a large petroleum company. And what they were doing way back when, this is almost 15 years ago, is creating a mock internal communication as a news broadcast, talking about the very last, and in this case, it was a Toyota vehicle coming off a production line that was carbon fuels based. And so it was forcing this oil and gas company to rethink its future in the absence of carbon fuel based products. So in that regard, it was driving the executive as well as the shareholders to consider alternative futures. Okay, and in that way, yeah, particularly scenario planning is very well suited for strategic risk management and being able to prepare people for changes in the future coming forward. So that is a mechanism. And then down from, we've talked about strategic processes down into strategy execution. Yeah, so just a thought.
Nice. Thank you. I like it. Great. Anita, what's your take?
I think because it's in this VUCA world, we need to react fast, but the wrong approach I think most companies do is a big bang approach. They want to change everything at the same time and have, in order to have quick results, in order to move on. But I think because of the legacy and the huge gaps they have to overcome, first do a kind of prioritization and identify what's the area with the biggest value, with the biggest impact, and with the biggest change, and then do a kind of startup mode with a pilot. That means you have everyone been this initiative, and then maybe with external help and internal help, go through this once, and then have it as a lighthouse project, and then do a scale up and a shift up for the rest of the organization. And I think this should work because usually, irrespective of projects and so on, they all want to do more in less time. And instead, you should do less in a certain time and really focus on this, make it successful so that other people feel comfortable that's working, maybe have some internal refinement rounds, retrospectives, and then say, okay, this is a first pilot, this we went through like a sprint 0, then we have sprint 1, and we iterate it, and then we extend it to other areas and just increase it so that it infiltrates the whole organization, and it's a healthy growth. And depending on the health check state or the maturity level of the organization, the cultural level, it takes more or less time, but it doesn't make any sense to rush through if the organization is not ready, if the people are not ready. But the people see there are pilots going on and it's working, and then they also get the confidence. And I think this is what would work. I would do it this way, and then communicate and be very transparent. So also have live the new values. There will always be setbacks, and you will always have smaller failures, but it's just like you stand up and move on. And this then with the right role models will lead to a kind of success. It's a hard work. It is continuous work, but I think it will merit.
Thank you. Very interesting. I think of course, there's a lot of exploration here and testing and trying, but this is very disruptive on many aspects that you were talking. And I don't know if the bigger problem are the leadership, because do they have that mindset? Do they have that agility? Do they spend enough time on this area instead of just running the business? I don't think so. So leadership it's a big constraint. And I just don't know how that can be addressed, unless it's very urgent and there's this urgency and it's like life or death. Then that's when they react and refocus. But other than that, I think they just, like you were saying on the boards, Claudette, they're more a business as usual and don't change it too much. So yeah, I just don't know how we can approach that, but definitely that can be the bigger trigger. Convincing the CEOs and the senior leaders that this is something core, essential, and even it's just for their business to survive, right? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I think, as you mentioned, the leadership really bring maybe a challenge sometime for things to be done accordingly. For the most part, I think in my experience, you'll find that the people who should be driving strategy at that leadership role are more concerned with the BAU work. And then you get to ask yourself, how do we expect those at the lower level to go ahead and implement, do this and this and that, while those that should be inspiring them, those who should be showing them why things need to be done, those whose buy-in is more important in terms of guiding the lower levels are not, they don't show that commitment to the strategy. So yes, I think that is a big challenge. And when it comes to cascading, it then gives or puts a lot of pressure in the facilitating team, because now they need to have like a plan of how are we going to get them to see the importance of this, to get their buy-in, so that when their teams look to them, they're able to see the input, the importance of this. Because sometimes our commitment as the lower staff level, let me say that, it is influenced by how we see our leaders. If my boss doesn't seem to sort of believe in something, but they expect me to go ahead, it's difficult for me to give it 100%, because I can tell when my leader doesn't seem sure of this, maybe I'm wasting more time. I should be doing 1, 2, 3. So it gives a challenge. Hopefully it's something, I don't know how it can be addressed. I think when I was reading one of the articles, I saw where it says, it doesn't help for us to train the staff in terms of project management skills when the leaders are not trained in project management skills, because their tone is very important. Their role as the sponsor, their role as the managers leading this, they need to know what they are doing. They need to know what to expect from others, and they need to know how to manage the teams that are going about in terms of executing this.
Thank you.
Antonio, I think also raises a point. I think it's important when you're having projects that even if we're the project managers, like we're coming in from the inside, then that would be kind of like our job job and to make sure that there's always an executive sponsor at some level that even if it's our job to kind of help to lead the strategy, that they're working alongside us. And the other thing that caught up with that brought to mind was trust. You know, I have a private sector client, medium size, hasn't shared anything. The business is doing well. I don't know how, but just by some miracle. But they do not share information. And so we had to bring in a financial analyst to look at, you know, how the company is doing. And it turns out it was doing really well. It did some AI, it cut down on some manual stuff. The other company leaders didn't even know. They didn't even know what all the business lines were. And the only way that happened is because I'm bugging this individual to go through this process. And it even took time to up the financial information, but the trust had to be there. And of course, he has lots of experiences in telecommunications where, you know, ideas have been stolen and whatnot and so on. Other companies have spun out of his company and stuff like that. So trust is very important. And I think we forget, I wouldn't call it a soft skill. We've had this conversation in this between us too, but it's very necessary. Whether they trust our competencies, whether they are fed up and they know what they did before is no longer working, that element of trust has to be established because that's where progress happens, at the speed of trust.
Yeah. I like the trusting, yes. And more people don't trust the leaders. So it's a very good point. With more speed of change, maybe the trust is even less. So the more important. Good, thank you. Really, I'm really, yeah, not getting all the answers, but it's triggering more thinking, right? And I think the solutions are never simple. But having the right questions is already the start. Thank you, Greg.
Tony, I was thinking about what has really worked in my career and what I've seen with clients, you know, and I must say the most inspiring course or that I've ever experienced was in the late 1990s, working as a strategic planner in one of the local banking corporate, financial services corporates. What they did to boost their project management was they had a weekend session, which was an entire simulation of best practice in project management. And what it involved, the company who did the entire computer-based simulation was a company called Davis and Dean, which I don't think exists anymore, from the US. And what they did was they had the executives and us who were there from a strategy and a project management together in one environment for a weekend and going through, it was long. I mean, it was 18-hour days, but really hardcore project management, how to deal with change, a new strategic impact in the market, how are the decisions made, and all of that. And what it did do was that the executive team walked out of there after just one weekend having an understanding of how to manage strategy and strategy execution, at least a conceptual understanding. And I think many of them went into further studies because of that, but definitely the whole management in execution changed fundamentally from that weekend. And I've never seen that type of simulation being done elsewhere. And maybe, Antonio, you've got far more experience than I have. Maybe you've seen that, but I thought that was so incredible. You know, deep diving people, immersing an entire team vertically and horizontally into good practice was really impressive.
I like that.
Anyway.
Yeah. Kind of deep dive and all together, joint effort, co-creation.
Yeah.
think it is a big one. Yeah, I like that idea, Greg. And what I see is also, or what I'm suggesting is this type of new ways of managing is not top down anymore. Is transversal, and that means that it's co-creation, it's workshops with different type of people, from leadership to and building the strategy together. Once you have the strategy built together, if you make changes, then people will feel already part of it, right? If you're just
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to people, they will resist. And so yeah,
So the executives weren't being felt threatened after that because they didn't know enough or whatever. So there was that whole participation and communication help. Sorry, and just a last word in was the example that I've come across before, and more the pure business side, and this was on supply chain management, was the playing the game called the beer game from MIT with another corporate. And the beer game is to do with end-to-end supply chain management and that whole process of interaction, etc. And also in that case, I saw dramatic changes in the whole value chain management through that. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of running these simulations as trainings, or anyway. So anyway, I won't.
very good. Okay, I don't think we're going to solve these bigger problems, but having the discussion is, I think that's what will, yeah, help us be prepared in case we have these situations in our companies, in our clients. I don't really think nobody has the solution yet. So, and this is again part of the interesting thing, right? So we just need to try and experiment and see. And hopefully that's what we do in the strategy implementation institute is work together to find options, right? Thank you, Anita.
Yes, I also wanted to say that I think for this question, there is no standard recipe, because the circumstantial variables are just too versatile. And that's the strength of this SIP framework, is that you have a certain anchors and you know where to dive in. And I think this is what we should be firm at, having a strong framework with a lot of tools and methodologies, and then do what the situation is best. Because even if you have an approach, and we are in complex times, so this is again Kinefin framework, and you have to sense and then probe, sense, and then act. And there is no standard solution anymore for this. You need to try out, you need to work your way through. And I think this is the mindset we need to approach with those things.
Mm-hmm.
We can have like experience, yes, but every company is unique, every situation is unique, every market is unique. There's already spreading very far away. So depending on which sector you're operating in, which kind of organization you have, which country, which culture, and so on. So that a lot of possibilities, but like this framework is helping you to say, okay, that gives a kind of orientation, and then I have at least a rough idea. And the other thing is just trying out and have as many people with a creative view, also with like maybe systemic questioning and so on, working out the best way. And then hopefully the organization will become a learning organization. And this is should be the ultimate goal.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. I like these deep discussions. Very interesting. We don't have them enough. I don't have more. I think if there's no further comments, we can leave it here. And I'll check on what you asked, Anita, for this email, what happened, and we'll let you know, everyone.
I really wanted to contact Robin, but said no, Robin is so busy, and I do not
Yeah.
want to bother him.
No, but I talk to Robin tomorrow morning, so we have a call at 7 a.m. So I will ask him if he can find out what happened. Who didn't get the email? Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you. Welcome, Bosa. And so Julia says we have this every month, and we have topics. Next time will be Robin, so we alternate. Sometimes we join together, but it's any topic that you also think will be worth sharing and discussing. We're very open. And feel free to connect with the rest. It's always very smart people here in these calls. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you. Take care. Stay well.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Cheers,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Your Friday.